So yes, I put congestion pricing on pause, because when it comes down to it, I'll always stand on the side of hardworking New Yorkers. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Governor, you, as recently as 3 weeks ago, were praising congestion pricing. And 6 months ago, we're talking, I mean, in similar terms to what you were just talking about in terms of leaders needing to stand up to headwinds, you were saying those things about congestion pricing. So given all that, given the financial stress that this has put the MTA under, why was the decision made now rather than long ago to do this, and why dump it in the legislature's lap 2 days before they leave Albany?
Well, you want to get to while they're still in session, number one, instead of after June 30th. But let me just step back to the premise of your question. Leaders sometimes need to listen more, and I realize that. As this date got closer, and I'm out there in the community all the time, you know, the neighborhood diner I go to the 3-4 days a week when I live in New York, the people that own the restaurants and the business, they tell me what's on their minds. And I cannot tell you the anxiety level that is continuing to go up and up and up. It wasn't out there before, but I, as the governor, have this ability to have a real pulse on what New Yorkers are thinking. I've always had that, 30 years of elected official. So I absorb that, and I say, can I really go forward right now? When we thought that inflation would be lower, we thought that people would feel more secure about going on the subways. Yes, we're coming back, but we can't afford a setback. That's what I'm talking about. So I wanted to make sure that I let people know that I'm putting this on a temporary pause, because I'm hearing from everyday New Yorkers who are just not ready for this. And that's my lodestar. I'll always do what's best for New Yorkers.
You just said temporary pause before you said indefinitely. You intend this pause to be temporary? You intend to impose congestion pricing at some point?
This is on pause. Yes, it is on pause. I don't know how to define pause other than it's a pause, meaning it's not happening June 30th, therefore it's paused. And I have a commitment to work with the leaders on funding in the short term to make sure that all the projects that are so important to all of us, because as has been noted in the media, in the fall of 2023, I was called one of the best friends of the MTA because I found a path forward to put it back on a financially stable plan, because it was looking at a fiscal cliff. If you recall all your coverage of this, of what I did, because I knew that this was the lifeblood of the region, no one can question my commitment to the MTA, to making sure that we ensure that it's ADA compatible, compliant, the elevators, the signals, the major projects that I'm still so excited about, 2nd Avenue Subway, the Interborough Express. I have so many ideas, but now is not the time to put it on the backs of hardworking New Yorkers who are still feeling the cost of inflation in their pocketbooks. An issue that was not there even a few months ago is we thought the numbers were going to improve. That's why.
Governor, you're talking about that yesterday, lawmakers payroll mobility tax that would have been increasing business owners within Manhattan and their costs. So how do you square that? And also, if congestion pricing is on pause, what other funding mechanisms are you looking at? Because doesn't the MTA have a fiduciary responsibility to bondholders? How do you square that?
Well, that's why the leaders and I have an agreement that we're going to resolve that. As you mentioned, we did toss around some ideas at this point. We talked about, here are some options. I want you to know we gave a lot of thought to this. Here are some options you may want to consider now. Now, they are not essential right now to ensure that the bonding can go forward, that the program is viable. They're not essential now because when you think about it, the revenues from congestion pricing would not have really accrued until much later. I mean, a year from now, we'd be looking at the money that was expected. So that's why we don't need to take immediate action. But I thought while they're here, if they want to entertain some options, I'm always about having conversations, exploring every possible way to go forward. And so we have a commitment to continue moving forward between now and the beginning of session, even coming back. We're talking about this, but I will tell you that no one should question my commitment or the leader's commitment to ensuring that these projects are properly funded. So that's what we're focused on right now.
Why do you support a tax on New York City businesses?
Well, first of all, one option could have been a tax minuscule increase on New York City's largest businesses, and I also included a tax cut for smaller businesses. That was just one idea I put out there. Didn't have to happen, but I thought it made some sense at the time. People consider that, but the largest businesses, instead of on their employees, the people who have to drive in, the nurse who works at a hospital and who's not going to take the subway for the 2 a.m. shift because she's afraid. Okay? There are people, real people, who are not necessarily rich like everyone thinks, who actually have to drive cars in. The security guard at the theaters who comes in late at night and is anxious about the cost, $3,600 more a year if you work 5 days a week. So it's a question of priorities. But I will make sure that we continue focusing. Also, congestion mitigation. This is an enormous priority of mine. But I also want to make an observation as someone who spent a lot of time in all 5 boroughs. Congestion is a problem in places more than just in Manhattan. If you've been to Brooklyn lately, Queens, I mean, these are places where it is tough to get around. We need a smart strategy, and I don't want to wait until it goes into, I wouldn't even want to wait another year. Why don't we start taking steps now to address the issue of congestion? And I'm committed to reducing emissions, which is why I'm leaning hard into our electrification programs, where most emissions do come from in cities. So we're working on all the above approach. But to talk about it now at the end of session was, well, you're here anyhow, let's talk about it now, or we can come back, or we can do it in the next session. There's a lot of options available.
Governor, just in terms of the timing here, I understand that you were waiting to see what inflation was looking like, but the gantries were up, the cameras were up, there was a lot of planning, hundreds of millions of dollars, as far as I can tell, have been spent to get to this point right now. Was this timing ideal to do 25 days before this was supposed to be implemented, number one? And number two, what do you say to the supporters, the environmental organizations, the business leaders who all had kind of lined up behind this program at some political risk to themselves?
Right. I understand. There's a lot of passion behind this. I am an environmentalist. I understand how important this is to people. What I say to them is, we're going to continue working to mitigate congestion in the city. This is on a temporary pause. The mechanics and the operations are in place. Yes, they're there. And I think that's one of the reasons people started getting very anxious when this started becoming very real to them, that this is no longer something that's been talked about over decades. Obviously, it's been talked about for decades because this is very complicated. And even the world has changed since 2019, when this was first passed by my predecessor and put into law. The world has changed. Remote work didn't exist. People have options now. And I can't do anything right at this time that could also suck the vitality out of the city, and we're still fighting for our comeback. So it's affordability, but it's also protecting our city at a time when it's almost there. But as I said, we're coming back, but we can't afford a setback.
Governor, the MTA has a fiduciary responsibility, as Bern answered, and while you appoint a plurality of the board members, you are not head of the MTA. So by what legal authority do you have to order a pause ahead of the board voting? And are you committed to letting them independently come to their own judgment on whether or not a pause fulfills their fiduciary duty?
We've already examined all this, and,
Tell me about it then.
well, it's not necessary for them to take action.
How so?
Either way, because
This
this,
is law right
because
now,
this is a
like,
temp, this is
they're
a
in charge
temp,
of the MTA.
because this is a temporary pause.
But how is that related
And
to
the
law?
MTA has agreed that they will take the steps necessary to implement what I've directed.
The MTA board has agreed?
The leadership of the MTA, it is not necessary to go for a vote to implement this. It is not necessary.
How is that based in law?
It is not required, I assure you. We have already looked into this. We are in constant communication with the MTA, their attorneys, their financial team on what is required to allow them to continue going forward, and that is why we're working closely with the leaders right now to identify a subsequent funding source that'll replace the MTA, the congestion pricing during this pause. It is a pause. Termination is a different dynamic. That would take some action. This is a pause. That's the difference.
When did Jano Lieber agree to this pause?
I've been communicating with him for some time now.
But when did he agree?
I'm not going to, I'm not going to give dates and times.
You said that you heard from more and more anxious New Yorkers up until.
He's over here.
Governor, the Assembly is hoping to potentially print a version of the New York Heat Act tonight. They're still going into session. They would need a message of necessity from you in order to potentially pass that. Is this something you consider signing?
Haven't talked to anyone about this one in a couple of days. We'll find out what the Assembly is looking for and continue the conversations. As I mentioned, I'm in constant communication with the leaders almost hourly over the last number of days on many, many issues, and just making sure some of my priorities got through, like the social media bill, which I think is going to be widely, widely appreciated by countless New Yorkers, especially the parents of young people who are being inundated with unwanted, addictive algorithms that are taking them to a very dark place. So that is something that I think deserves a lot of coverage, because no other state has been able to withstand the bombardment of attacks against our plan and come out standing and do it successfully. And I look forward to that bill signing.
Okay, Governor, is there a reason for
One at a time. Okay. Okay.
Curious about your decision to tell this to legislative leaders and lawmakers 2 days ago. I know it really upended a lot of negotiations and the time that, was already very little. A lot of those things you're talking about, the legislation may not get over the finish line, probably won't, because it sucked up all the air out of the room. So why that? And also, how do you feel like this will help Democrats in November? Or do you feel like if you did not put this on pause, would that impact their ability to get reelected?
On the first question, at least one of the leaders has already said that these conversations have been going on for a couple of weeks. So that is not accurate to say that they found out 2 days before. Okay, so that's for the record. But also, and I talked to lots of people, talked to the White House, talked to Washington leadership, talked to elected officials all over this city, in addition to many people on the street and the business owners and the people in the mom and pop shops. So this was not waking up one day and saying, let's do this. That's not how I operate. I don't tell everybody who I'm meeting with all day long. I don't have to have a press conference to say, oh, I met with this person. I gather information. But the voices that were most powerful to me are those who feel they're being ignored. They are hurting right now, and we ignore them to our detriment. So politics, if it's defined as listening to people, meeting them where they are right now and understanding the pain they're in and the stress they're under, that's how I view it. My job is to listen to them, independent of timing of elections. The timing of this is not related to an election months away. It's related to the fact that it was going to go into effect June 30th. That's something I had no control over.
And then on social media, how long will it take you to implement that?
I think it takes there's some regulations. The Attorney General's office will be in charge of some regulations, so I don't know the effective date that was passed, but I think it's at least a year from now. Let me check on that, though. It might have been the end of this year.
Governor, is there any reason that people in other parts of the state, such as Western New York, should now be concerned that they may now be bearing the costs of the tax money to pay for the money that's now not in the capital plan because of the death of, or apparent pause, I should say, of congestion pricing?
No, see, that's not settled. There's still a lot of areas where what I needed to emerge from these last couple of days, which I have secured, is the commitment of the leaders to make sure we can replace that with a different funding source. There are many, many ways to identify that. We're not prepared to say it right now, but those conversations literally started this week, later today, probably later tonight, and we'll go on, and we'll be happy to share with everybody when that's resolved. So you cannot, there's no assumption that that is the only path forward, so that's premature.
Governor, I want to ask on top of that, the city of Buffalo is depending on money coming from the compact between the Senecas and the state. There was a press release put out last night by the Senecas about the negotiations. What is the status of that, and is there a reason to believe that that compact deal could happen anytime soon?
We've been working very closely together. We're in a extended period of time. There is an extension that we signed together. I met with the leadership of the Senecas several times, including here and in Western New York. My team is very engaged with them, and we look forward to telling you when it's all resolved.
Governor, I mean this with due respect, but how stupid do you think New Yorkers have to be to believe that this congestion pricing decision wasn't politically motivated?
I will never think that the voters and constituents of New York are stupid. Those are your words, never mine. All I know is I encourage you to go to the next diner with me, and I'll probably be there Monday morning. Sit with me and watch the people come over and thank me. That's all I need to know. That is all I need to know. And if they were saying, we love the idea of paying more money to come into this diner because I live outside in another borough and I'm not taking the subway today, you know, I haven't heard anyone say that. I've not heard a single small business owner say, I'm really looking forward to my New Jersey customers. The hardware store that was featured in the news just a couple of days ago, the owner who says, it's going to increase the cost of deliveries, I'm going to have to pass it on to my constituents, and my New Jersey customers are already saying they're not going to come. That's real stress and real pain, and that is all that matters to me. I'm not going to tell you. I'll invite you to one. I'll take you to one with me.
Can you even name one or two diners that you went to in the past month?
Oh, yeah. Comfort Diner used to be my favorite, and then I now go to the Townhouse Diner. There's also one up on 42nd, a little fancier, the Pershing Square. I don't really consider that a diner, but that owner at Pershing Square Cafe is very happy. Okay. Yeah, I was with my husband there probably Wednesday morning. Okay.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. For more stories in your communities, click the subscribe button right here. You can also download our app or watch us on TV for the latest news and weather updates every 10 minutes and more. We'll see you then.